sustainable development in balance with economic development. Why this circus? Why not set up effective mechanisms to protect our resources and develop them intelligently? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member will have 5 minutes remaining for questions and comments once we return to this bill.
Members, Déclaration des députés. The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, last week in my riding of Kelowna Lake Country, I had the pleasure of attending the 2018 Lake Country Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Awards. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize all the companies and individuals that were nominated for an award and take a moment to acknowledge the winners. Bernard Dwanek and Leisner, Dairy Queen, UBR Services Printing and Copies, Interior Savings, Nalu Massage Therapy and Wellness, Sip Happen Wine Tours, Sun City Physiotherapy, Neon Consulting, and Art Walk. The Young Entrepreneur of the Year award went to Kim Chapman, and the Business Person of the Year was Garth McKay. I would also like to congratulate the Lake Country Chamber for putting on an exceptional event. Mr. Speaker, small business often plays a bigger role in smaller districts as it increases both the employment opportunities and quality of life for their entire community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for North Okanagan Shuswap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This summer, disadvantaged individuals will not find the help they need. The hungry may not be served meals. Seniors may not receive the companionship from trainees. Summer camps may need to reduce their operating weeks or camp spaces. Students will not find summer job where they could develop their work skills and advance to better employment. Some would ask, how can this be? What has changed? Well, this Liberal government has decided to place their own values test on employers applying for the Canada Summer Jobs Program, a values test that organizations in my riding of North Okanagan Shuswap cannot, in good conscience, support. These organizations for years have supported Canada's summer jobs and provided services to children, seniors, and the disadvantaged. I urge this government to abandon their cold-hearted attack on our faith-based organizations and remove the attestation box requirement for the Canada Summer Jobs Program.
Member for Miramichi Grand Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this week marks the 6th anniversary of the House of Commons unanimously passing Shannon's Dream, which called for safe and equitable education for First Nation children.
We know that schools on reserve are seriously underfunded. That's why we're investing $2.6 billion over 5 years to support primary and secondary school services on reserve. This is in addition to the nearly $1 billion set aside for education infrastructure, which will help fund 169 projects, some of which have already been completed.
I'm pleased to highlight that in my riding, funding has been approved for a new K-8 school on Elsipogtog First Nation to replace the existing 35-year-old one. Every First Nation child deserves the best start in life, and this begins with properly funded education. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The
honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, imagine it's a beautiful winter day. You're lacing up your skates, you're putting on your helmet and equipment, and getting ready to take to the ice as thousands of spectators cheer you on. But this isn't hockey, because you're at the top of a huge hill, and you need to make it down a steep course full of bumps, jumps, and curves. You need to do it as fast as possible, and you have to get there in one piece. This extreme sport is called downhill ice cross, and part of the World Championships of this sport will be held, or are being held, in La Sarre right now until Saturday. After Austria, Switzerland, Russia, Finland, and France, and the United States, Abitibi-Témiscamingue now has the chance to host this prestigious competition, part of a world tour that attracts athletes from many countries where winter sports are a way of life, just like they are in Canada. I'd like to congratulate the president of the La Sarre Ice Challenge, Mr. Yannick Provencher, the organizing committee, the city, and the many volunteers who made this kind of event possible and who have put Abitibi-Témiscamingue in the international spotlight.
Hastings, Lennox, and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate International Women's Day and to pay tribute to the incredible women in my riding who are helping to organize the 4th annual International Women's Day event, which is taking place in Napanee tomorrow. Women across our community will gather together at the Napanee Legion to recognize the incredibly important role that women and girls play in our society. As the organizers have said, they are coming forward, they are standing together with one voice, they are building beside and encouraging one another, and they are gaining strength within their communities. I will also be celebrating my amazing wife Irene and daughter Haley, and the incredible women on my constituency office team, Valerie, Jennifer, Stella, Kathy, and Nancy, whose strength, compassion, and dedication are an inspiration to me. Mr. Speaker, I invite you to join me in saluting these women and to join all Canadians in proudly celebrating International Women's Day. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to pay tribute to a World War II veteran we lost earlier this week. Henry Chick Hewitt spent nearly all his life in Oshawa. Like so many of his generation, he valiantly answered the call to defend our freedom during the Second World War. Chick served as a navigator on a Lancaster bomber. He flew 35 missions with the Royal Air Force's 90th Squadron in 1944-1945, but his service didn't end there. He went on to contribute immensely to the 420 Wing Oshawa and many other groups in my community. Anyone who knew Chick had great respect and admiration for him. His boundless love for his country and for his family was well known to all. It was my privilege last year to award Chick with a Canada 150 Volunteer Medal for his service to Oshawa and to Canada. Mr. Speaker, there is no doubt in my mind that Chick Hewitt was a true Canadian hero whose bravery will never be forgotten. May he rest in peace.
The Honourable Member for Fredericton.
In honour of International Women's Day, March 8th, I highlight the 25th anniversary of the Muriel McQueen Ferguson Centre for Family Violence Research. Named after women's rights activist and the first woman Speaker of the Senate, the Muriel McQueen Ferguson Centre has been an active part of the solution to overcome gender-based violence in New Brunswick and throughout Atlantic Canada.
For a quarter century, staff at the centre have helped to raise awareness about gender-based violence. They've worked tirelessly to get governments, universities, police groups, and communities to collaborate on research projects and to take action to help service providers and to help survivors of gender-based violence.
I thank and congratulate the Muriel McQueen Ferguson Centre for all the work they have done to prevent gender-based violence and for helping make New Brunswick and all of Atlantic Canada a better and safer place for women and girls.
Member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, March is Pharmacist Awareness Month, and on that occasion, I'd like to recognize the important role that pharmacists play in Canada's healthcare system by promoting safe and effective medication management, health promotion, and disease prevention. As a registered nurse, I can tell you every day pharmacists work closely with other healthcare professionals to empower patients by providing them with the information that they need to get more involved in their care. Let's also underline the key implication of our local pharmacists in helping to address the opioid crisis in our communities by providing advice to patients on the proper use of prescription drugs. And they work collaboratively with provinces and territories to support access to naloxone in communities from coast to coast to coast. To all of them across Canada, Mr. Speaker, we say thank you for your dedication and commitment to keeping Canadians safe and healthy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, we celebrate International Women's Day. We celebrate women from all countries, all backgrounds, and all faiths. Today, we celebrate the fact that all women are valuable and have incredible contributions to make to society. Every woman is full of potential and able to positively impact the world. Every woman deserves equal opportunity to do so. This year's theme is Press for Progress. Today, we renew our commitment to creating a world where women and men exist as equals, people of equal value, equal worth, and equal dignity. Today, we celebrate the greatness in each and every woman around the globe. Today, we commit to being her champion. She is strong, she is capable, she's intelligent, she is talented, she is inspiring. She's a grandmother, a mother, spouse, daughter, sister, niece, friend, and co-worker. Today we commit to empowering women who they are. We commit to putting aside our biases and overcoming stereotypes. We commit to being her champion.
Député de Ville-Marie.
Honourable Member for Ville-Marie, le Sud-Ouest Île-des-Sœurs.
Mr. Speaker, Montreal is home to the country's brightest minds and top research institutions, and when I visited them, I kept hearing the same things. They were concerned that support for fundamental research was lagging, that there were not enough opportunities for those trying to start their research careers, and that they wouldn't have the necessary resources to maintain their facilities. Whether it's $925 million in new funding for fundamental research through the granting councils, $210 million in new support for early career researchers, a $231 million boost to the Research Support Fund, or the $763 million for the Canadian Foundation for Innovation, Budget 2019 delivers to students and researchers. Nous savons que les emplois.
We know that the jobs of the future depend on Canadians' ability to adapt, innovate, and maintain Canada's competitive edge in an ever-changing, globalizing world. That's why we are continuing to invest in Canadian researchers and their work. This support is critical if we really want to help future generations succeed.
Bravo.
The Honourable Member for Tobic-Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, Canadian Agricultural Safety Week is an annual public awareness campaign organized by the Canadian Agricultural Safety Association in conjunction with the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, encouraging Canadians to focus on the importance of agricultural safety. This week runs in 2018 from March 11th to the 17th. The Campagne de Rural Agriculture.
The Agricultural Safety Ribbon was the brainchild of Alberta Agriculture and Forestry. The ribbons are made in the community, for the community, and they are available to anyone who cares about the safety of Canadian farmers, as well as the safety of their families and workers.
Agricultural safety is something that hit home for me this fall when my daughter Emma experienced a close call while working during the potato harvest this past fall. And luckily she was okay, but it drove home for me the importance of encouraging agricultural safety and encouraging young Canadians working in the agricultural industry to look after themselves and always be diligent while working around heavy machinery. This week I had the honor of facilitating the distribution of Ag Safety ribbons to both sides of the House, and I ask this Canadian Ag Safety Week, please wear the ribbon, talk about farm safety, and make a commitment to keep all Canadian farmers, their families, and their workers free from injury. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Carlton.
His autistic son taught Randy Lewis the amazing and underutilized potential of workers with disabilities. His job as Walgreens vice president gave him a chance to do something about it, hiring over 1,000 workers with disabilities at Walgreens' mercilessly competitive distribution centers, earning the same wages and doing the same work as everyone else. His book, No Greatness Without Goodness, recounts the touching story of her mother breaking into tears when her adult disabled son came home with his first paycheck, which was bigger than either of his parents had ever earned. I'm pleased to announce today that Randy Lewis has endorsed the Opportunity for Workers with Disabilities Act, which will allow workers with disabilities to earn more in wages than they lose in clawbacks and taxes. It'll give thousands of people the pride and independence of a job and what Martin Luther King called the dignity of labor.
The Honourable Member for Acadie-Bathurst. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pride to stand today in this House to congratulate the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Minister of Families, Children and Social Development. Budget 2018 has highlighted the importance and value of seasonal industries and their workers. This acknowledgement from the government comes with a historic financial allocation of $240 million to address the EI service gap known as the black hole. The government immediately made $10 million available to the provinces so that those governments could quickly roll out a plan to address the needs in local and specific way.
$130 million over the next 2 years so that key provinces can quickly identify a solution to avoid having the black hole reoccur in the future. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the hardworking people of Acadie-Bathurst and all workers in seasonal industries will now have access to the supports they need when they need them the most. I want to thank them for their tireless efforts and their advocacy. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, despite the Liberal government's disappointing budget, I would like to sincerely thank the residents of Trois-Rivières for mobilizing around an inspiring project for our city and our region, the high-frequency train. This mobilization was and is exceptional. Politicians from all political parties and all levels of government were united except for one. Allow me to quote the mayor of Trois-Rivières, who encapsulated everyone's disappointment on this issue. He said, "It would be easier to get to the moon." I also want to acknowledge the hard work of the Trois-Rivières Chamber of Commerce and industry representatives, as well as the citizens who took action, writing open letters and emails, signing petitions, and participating in my 10%er campaigns. Thank you to each and every one. I also want to say that despite our bafflement at the government's inaction, their voices are being heard, and my voice in Ottawa is even stronger when we all stand together.
L'honorable député, the honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, last week the Reverend Billy Graham walked into the arms of the Saviour he served faithfully for decades. He was 99 years old. Today, thousands will gather to celebrate his life. Billy Graham, from the age of 15, devoted his life to God, sharing the good news of Jesus Christ to millions around the world. He had a simple message that provided hope to the hopeless and light to those in darkness. It can be summed up in 3 words: faith in Christ. That simple message was taken from the Bible in the book of John, chapter 3, verse 16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Mr. Speaker, Graham once wrote, quote, "Someday you will read or hear that Billy Graham is dead. Don't believe a word of it. I should be more alive than I ever was. I will just have changed my address. I have gone into the presence of God." Reverend Graham, you have fought the good fight, finished the race, kept the faith, enjoy to the full the reward of your faith in Christ. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Mississauga Centre.
Mr. Speaker, are you like the thousands of Canadians who are planning a vacation this spring break? Have you packed your sunscreen, your camera? Have you settled on what type of activities you'll be doing during your trip? Do me a favor, though. Before leaving, you should visit Canada's best source of traveling information at travel.gc.ca. You will find in-depth information about your destination, including travel advisory, security conditions, law and local customs, and climate data. There's even a traveler's checklist that includes Canadian government contact details just in case of an emergency. You should also download our smart travel app. It will place all of that info and more in the palm of your hand. Mr. Speaker, don't think just because you're the Speaker, you're immune from mishaps on your trips. I just want you to be prepared. And also, make sure you have an amazing vacation, and don't forget to bring us back lots of pictures.
Well, thank you for those encouraging words. Oral questions, question orale. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
With its over 1.2 billion people, provide Canada with the largest potential for export growth. Unfortunately, that potential and opportunity is being damaged because of the Prime Minister's incompetence. Last night, India raised the duty on Canadian chickpeas to 60%, a clear signal that India is understandably upset, and Canadian chickpea producers are the first to pay the price. The Prime Minister has damaged our relationship with India. What is he going to do to fix this mess?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the colleague for the question. As you know, we value our relationship with India. In fact, I was just in India in November leading the largest trade mission in Canada history with 150 people from the Canadian side. We met 11 ministers from India. And I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, and the member knows well, we raise that issue at every single meeting. And I will continue to raise that because what our farmers want, they want stability and predictability, and we're going to be working to provide that to our Canadian farmers.
Okay, we can start again. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the minister makes my very point. It actually doesn't matter how hard he works, because when the Prime Minister is blaming India for causing problems with his trip, the Prime Minister is damaging all of the work that everybody in this place is trying to do for Canadians. His conspiracy theory against India is causing a breakdown in our relationship. The Indian government said yesterday that the chickpea tariff increase was due to circumstances that make it necessary to take immediate action. Well, We all know what circumstances they are referring to. Why did the Prime Minister act so irresponsibly both while in India and now at home?
The Minister for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, as I said to my honourable colleague, we were there in November, the Prime Minister there. This was to advance our farmers. I was just in Regina last week. Their cause with respect to policies, and we're going to continue to work. We understand that our farmers need stability and predictability. That's what I brought to the Indian side. And what they want is about food security. We're going to continue to work together.
Okay, I just thought I'd stop for a second because I was having a hard time hearing the answer. Okay, the Honourable Minister, please proceed.
I was just saying, Mr. Speaker, as the member understands, well, I was just in Western Canada last week, and we're going to continue to work with our farmer. I spoke to Policies Canada. We're going to continue to work with them because what we want for our farmers is stability and predictability. So you can trust us, Mr. Speaker, that as a whole of government, we're going to make sure that we work for our farmers in a
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Well, if farmers have friends like the Liberals and this Prime Minister, they don't need any enemies because look at the results that these Liberals are getting. Increased tariffs. So maybe just stay home instead of causing all of this damage. Instead of maintaining a strong trading relationship and ensuring access for Canadian producers, the Prime Minister has made protecting his own image and covering up his blunders his main priority, and he's put that in front of the interests of Canadians. Again, the Prime Minister has created a huge mess. We are seeing the results by these tariff increases. This could just be the first shot across the bow. What is the Prime Minister going to do?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, this was a trip that was focused on creating and enhancing our business relationship with India. We welcomed $1 billion, Mr. Speaker, in total investments between Canadian and Indian companies, which will lead to the creation of close to...
Okay, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
As I said, Mr. Speaker, the trip will lead to the creation of close to 6,000 good, well-paying middle-class jobs in Canada, such as Tech Mahindra, a leader in tech IT services, which will be investing $100 million to establish a new centre of excellence for artificial intelligence in Canada. The Jubilant Bhartia Group, which will be investing $100 million to expand its facilities in Kirkland.
L'Honourable Député de Charbon.
The Honourable Member for Charbon-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, when our Prime Minister was in India, he behaved like a bad actor in a low-budget film. It was a diplomatic failure, a security failure, and an economic failure. We're learning that the Indian government has announced an increase in the tariff on chickpeas from 40 to 60%. This film was a comedy, now it's a horror film. Our international relations have been suffering since this government came to power. The Prime Minister is making mistakes, but Canadians have to pay. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, there's no one who works harder for farmers than this Prime Minister. When I was on the last mission, it was our biggest international mission. We met more than 11 ministers, and I can tell my colleague that with every meeting we brought this issue up. We are working for Canadian farmers, and Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we know how important farmers are. The Honourable Member for Charbon-Haute-Saint-Charles. Yes, my colleague is working very hard. The problem is his boss. Mr. Speaker, after this disastrous trip to India, we learned that Canada's security has been compromised. We learned yesterday that these diplomatic faux pas are going to cost the Canadian economy because India has increased the tariff on chickpeas. Does the Prime Minister understand that what he does internationally has consequences, and what is he going to do to fix our diplomatic relations? Mr. Speaker, as I said to my honourable colleague, we are continuing our discussions. India is a major international partner for Canada, and look at what the Prime Minister did in India. There have been several thousand jobs for Canada, $1 billion in trade. We are doing as much as we can to increase the benefits from this relationship. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we learned that Donald Trump has attacked our industry again. After softwood, it's now the aluminum industry which is going to suffer from the unwarranted decisions made by the American president. 10% on aluminum products. And in Quebec, aluminum is a big industry. This is protectionist attack. What is this government going to do to help us deal with this protectionist policy?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Monsieur le Président, en tant que...
Mr. Speaker, all commercial restrictions on aluminum in Canada are unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable. We have a very integrated economy, and we're part of the supply chain, which serves the Americans as well. If restrictions are imposed, we will defend our rights, we will defend our trade interests, and we will defend Canadian workers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Groundhog Day again already, Mr. Speaker, because once more we see the U.S. administration targeting a vital Canadian industry. This time it's the steel sector. Here's the pattern with this Liberal government, and it's not a good one. While they sit in round after round after round of NAFTA talks, Donald Trump targets Canadian industry after industry after industry with illegal tariffs. Here's Trump's Canadian hit list so far: softwood lumber, aerospace, agriculture, and now steel. So exactly how many more tariffs and attacks will Canadian workers have to face before Liberals reach a durable and fair agreement?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we will always defend Canadian interests and values, and as a key NORAD and NATO ally and the #1 customer of American steel, any trade restrictions on Canadian steel and aluminum are not acceptable. Our steel and aluminum industry is highly integrated and supports American manufacturing supply chains. Our government has raised this point directly with the highest levels of the United States administration, and we will continue to do so. And we reserve the right to take responsive measures to defend our trade interests and Canadian workers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Skeena, Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, you ever been on one of those family vacations where your dad makes you take so many photos that just out of sheer desperation you have to throw yourself on the ground? Well, that's how Canadians felt watching the Prime Minister's terrible trip to India. Not only that, but he also managed to create a major international security incident in the process. And now, adding insult to injury, we now learn that the Indian government is raising a tariff on Canadian chickpeas. So my question is simple. Did the Prime Minister raise the issue of trade? And now that we have a problem, is he going to do something to help Canadian farmers who are being targeted?
Minister for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, there is no government that is working harder for our farmers in Canada. That I can assure you. When I was there last November, we met 11 ministers of the Indian government. We made sure that every single meeting we had representatives from Pulse Canada with us. We made sure that we talked with our Indian counterpart about stability and predictability. We made sure that the Indian government would understand we want to be a trusted partner, but we needed to ensure a long-term solution which is based on science. That's exactly what we've done, and this is exactly what the Prime Minister did during his last trip.
I want to remind the honourable members that holding up posters with someone's picture on it is considered a prop. So I won't point out any member in particular, but I just want to make sure that it's not happening again. The
Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, the bad news just keeps on coming with respect to the trip to India this morning. We learn in La Presse that the government extrapolated job creation figures in its announcement in India. Rather than 5,800 jobs, it would be more closer to 2,738, and that was the good news. Is this government able to tell us what was the purpose of this trip? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I can answer my honourable colleague that the purpose of the trip was trade and strengthening our commercial ties to India. We have $1 billion in investment between the two countries and almost 6,000 jobs created for the middle class. I can give you examples. There's Tech Mahindra, which is a leader in information technology, which will set up a center of excellence in Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member.
Atwal affair gets more sordid by the day. Yesterday, in his elevator press conference, the public safety minister suggested that it was okay for the National Security Advisor to share confidential information with the media, but not okay for that same information to be shared with members of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Why was the Indian conspiracy theory okay to share with journalists to help get the Prime Minister out of a crisis, but not okay to share with the House of Commons, where Canadian sends MP to hold them to account?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable colleague across, who's been in this House for a long time, he well knows that we cannot discuss specific intelligence information that is received from national security agencies. He's well aware of that.
Okay, I'll let the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But the independent, nonpartisan advice that we receive from our public servants is something that we listen to and we act on. Unlike the party opposite, we do not particize or play games with our public service. We make sure we listen to their advice and act accordingly.
Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, the point made by the Parliamentary Secretary is absurd. They're saying it's okay for the PMO to share confidential information with journalists that Canadians, including members of Parliament, will then read in the paper, but it's not okay to share that same information with parliamentarians or parliamentary committees to hold the Prime Minister and that member to account for this atrocious trip. When will they admit that the cover-up of the Atwal affair is worse than the crime?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's what that member is saying. That's certainly not representative of the facts whatsoever. Again, to be very clear, and the member knows this well, we cannot, under any circumstance, discuss specific intelligence or information that received from our national security agencies. The member has been in government. He knows that very well, and that is a rule that must be adhered to. We follow the advice of our public servants. We stand behind that advice. We don't play partisan games with it, and we act on it when we're given that information.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has accused the Indian government of being involved in inviting his convicted terrorist friend, Jaspal Atwal, to a state dinner. Yet one of his own Liberal MPs has taken the blame and been reprimanded for issuing the invitation. The Prime Minister does not seem to realize he has created a diplomatic disaster, as India has responded by raising tariffs on some products by 50%. Will he issue an apology to the Government of India, or will he continue to allow his accusations to cost Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said in this place, the invitation in question should have never been sent. And when the information was found out about this individual, that invitation was immediately rescinded. The Member of Parliament who advanced that name has apologized and made it clear that there was an error that occurred. We absolutely, and without question, as I have said, stand behind our public service and the recommendations that they make to us. We listen to their advice in this and every instance and act on it accordingly.
Honorable Député de Lévis-Lotbinière.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal honeymoon is now over. Following the disgraceful diplomatic incident between Canada and India, a Liberal MP was punished for having invited the Prime Minister's friend, Jaspal Atwal, to India, and India has bumped up its tariff from 40 to 60%. This is the price Canada has to pay for this diplomatic debacle. Mr. Speaker, it'll take more than dancing in the sun to deal with this incident. What does the Prime Minister intend to do to remedy this diplomatic disaster? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. The invitation was a mistake, and as soon as information was available about this individual, the invitation was rescinded. And all public officials, all government officials, and their services are essential, and we have great confidence in our officials.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's trip to India is best described as a theatre of the absurd. Mr. Atwell has deep connections with the Liberal Party. They blame a backbench MP for inviting him to dinner. Then they bring out this preposterous theory that the Indian government was responsible and they were trying to embarrass the Prime Minister. The result, a serious diplomatic incident and a punishing tariff on our pulse products, hurting our Canadian farmers. What's the Prime Minister going to do to fix this mess?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I've been very clear that the invitation that was made should not have been made and that it was rejected. But here's my problem. Okay, when the party opposite that was responsible for devastating cuts to our national security infrastructure, $530 million to the RCMP, $390 million from CBSA, and the list goes on, stands and gives lectures on national security when it ignored the advice of Justice O'Connor in 2006, Justice Iacobucci in 2009. It's a little rich, Mr. Speaker. So I would ask them to rethink their line of attack.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister must realize that his antics on the global stage have very real consequences. The casualties for this latest diplomatic nightmare are Canadian farmers. The only souvenir from the Prime Minister's latest family vacation is successfully derailing Canada's trade relationship with India. Yesterday, India increased the tariffs on our chickpeas from 40 to 60%, further jeopardizing Canada's $4 billion pulse industry. Will the Prime Minister please explain why he is so willing to sacrifice Canadian farmers just to maintain this ridiculous conspiracy theory?
The Honourable Minister for Trade.
Mr. Speaker, it is ludicrous to make the assertion that the member is making. Clearly, we have been working for farmers in Canada, and we are always working for farmers. I was just in Regina last week, talking with the people in Pulse Canada, making sure that we work with the Indian government. This is the best way we can do to ensure that our farmers would have stability and predictability in the Indian market. We will continue to do so. I've raised that at every single occasion I had a communication with an Indian official. That's what the Prime Minister did. That's why this whole government is doing, is defending our farmers across Canada.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, this week we all saw what could be the fastest ever Liberal broken promise. The government has clarified it will actually now just study, not implement pharmacare, and any future program will not be universal, public, or free. And now the Finance Minister is facing conflict of interest allegations on his fake pharmacare proposal because of his link with Morneau Chappelle, Canada's largest benefits consultancy provider. Will the Finance Minister recuse himself from any pharmacare discussions because of the serious apparent conflict of interest?
Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are proud of their publicly funded universal Medicare system, one that's based on the individual's need and not on the ability to pay. Yet we recognize there is certainly room for improvement. We have created an advisory council on the implementation of a national pharmacare program with the mandate to study, to evaluate, and to ultimately make recommendations to government on a path forward to implement pharmacare that puts Canadians first. This initiative builds on the good work that's already been undertaken by our government to improve access to necessary prescription medications for all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, it's not just us who are asking for this recusal. 3 major organizations, including the Canada Labour Congress, have asked that the Minister withdraw from discussions around pharmacare in order to avoid another conflict of interest, but also to make sure he doesn't work against public interest. Canadians need a pharmacare program that is nationwide. Will the Prime Minister have the Minister of Finance withdraw from discussions and make sure that this consultation is not simply another tactic to break another promise? Mr. Speaker, Canadians are very proud of our healthcare program. We want to meet people's needs. This system can be improved. We have created an advisory committee for the implementation of a pharmacare program. This committee is mandated with looking at various recommendations and scenarios in order to have a program that benefits all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, really, listening to the Liberals talk about how concerned they aren't about agriculture, when I asked the Agriculture Minister a question, he pulled out his 2017 budget, nothing in the 2018 budget. Mr. Speaker, we've learned today that the Prime Minister's trip to India simply worsened the situation for our pulse producers. So why are the Liberals so cheap with Canadian farmers? The Parliamentary Secretary, Mr. Speaker, as in the 2017 budget, we identified agriculture as a key sector. And we have put millions of dollars into agriculture, into science and innovation. We have been working on Asian markets. We've helped dairy producers. We've helped women in agriculture. Mr. Speaker, we are continuing to create growth and opportunities for farmers and their families.
Speaker, if they're working on improving the Asian market, why have we got a 50% increase in chickpeas? In the past 2 weeks, or 2 of the past 4 weeks in Manitoba, the one railroad has only met 6% of the railcar orders placed by shippers. That means tens of thousands of tons of grain, contracted grain, Mr. Speaker, is not moving, which has virtually stalled cash flow for farmers on the prairies. Will this Liberal government stop delaying? We warned you about C-49 last fall. It's too late. Farmers can't wait. Action is needed. Reinstate our previous government's Conservative government's effective measures and get grain moving now.
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, our government recognizes the importance of efficient and reliable rail service, especially moving Canadian grain and other commodities to market. You know, after enduring 10 years of Band-Aid actions on behalf of the other government, we introduced Bill C-49. It will provide a strong and reliable, efficient freight rail system for the future. The Minister of Transport and Agriculture have been in contact with the railways, urging them to do better, and we will closely monitor the situation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker, our track record is clear. We have always stood up for Canadian farming families from coast to coast, and we will continue to do so. Look, here's the deal. Western grain producers have faced a disastrous shipping season due to this government. In order to provide for their families, they rely on getting their grain to market to bring money in order to put food on their tables. Their ask is very simple. Grain farmers simply want the Liberals to start listening to them and then take action. When will this government resolve the backlog and get the grain moving?
Yes.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, again, we've proven time and time again that we're strongly committed to Canadian farmers and our agricultural industry. Unlike the Band-Aid solutions of the past, with an expiry date, our government put forward Bill C-49 that would meet the long-term sustainable needs of users for years to come. And to quote the Western Grain Elevators Association, this bill, C-49, is a significant improvement over existing legislation and a positive step forward for the grain industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, the only thing they've proven is that they can increase tariffs. Liberals think that they are good with numbers, so let's try these on for size. 38. That's the percentage of hopper cars supplied by CN and CP combined. 3,965. That's the number of outstanding orders for hopper cars, 300 more than last week. Millions. That's the amount of dollars in demurrage charges that are being passed on to our farmers. Farmers across Canada have bins full of grain, contracts to fill, and they need the cash flow to start preparing for seeding. Will the Liberals look at these numbers, do the right thing, and get this grain moving?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Both ministers have been in contact with the railway companies. Well, you should care. We should care about talking to the railway companies because we need to find a permanent solution. Now, The contact with the railway companies have indicated that the temporary situation of early February is improving. And that's what we need, Mr. Speaker, an improvement on this performance. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, stakeholders in my region are disappointed by the lack of vision of the Liberal budget. Everyone was impatiently waiting for funding for the high-frequency train. But the government is throwing us back into another round of studies. It would seem that the presence of a regional minister in cabinet makes them more of a voice for Ottawa in the region than a voice for the region in Ottawa. It is time to act because the residents of Trois-Rivières have been waiting for far too long. The Liberals have announced billions in infrastructure that they are not spending. When will Trois-Rivières get its share of the amounts promised for infrastructure? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Transportation. Mr. Speaker, our government is developing the best approach in order to set up an effective and reliable rail transportation system for passengers. To do so, we have set aside funding in 2 budgets in order to study the proposal for Via Rail's high-frequency train. We are taking this project seriously. We're doing our homework regarding the number of potential passengers, and we are working actively with Via Rail. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. That's exactly what my colleague was saying. Throwing numbers around here is easy. But when the mayor of Trois-Rivières says, and I quote, "I think it's easier to go to the moon than to bring rail service back to the North Shore," I was sure that the member for Saint-Maurice-Champlain would be able to tip the scales, end quote. There is a problem. Families in the Paratite Grey area, victims of Yamashish, and I won't even go into supply management. Mr. Speaker, what good is an MP for Saint-Maurice-Champlain who has completely forgotten Mauricie? The Honourable Minister. I am delighted to answer the question of my honourable colleague. A minister in the region translates into millions of dollars of investment in the region. What I can tell my colleague for Trois-Rivières is that he did not read the budget well. Not only did we invest $3 million into studies for Via Rail, but we're investing into new trains and new wagons. The entire region should be delighted that the high-frequency train between Quebec and Windsor has been the object of real investment, and we will continue to work together in order to make this project a reality. The Honourable Member for Vimy. Mr. Speaker, 2017 was marked by multiple disasters and extended crises that created famines and violence in Africa, crises in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, cyclones in the Caribbean, ethnic cleansing in Myanmar. In 2018, according to the UN, humanitarian needs have reached an unprecedented level. 136 million people need humanitarian assistance in 26 countries. Can the Minister for Development, or rather International Development and the Francophonie, tell this House about how the government is meeting these significant challenges? The Honourable Minister of International Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for Vimy for her question and her commitment to the status of women. In our budget, there's $2 billion over 5 years, which is the biggest increase in 10 years. This will allow us to increase the impact of our feminist international assistance policy to help women and girls. It will help us to not only to promote change and peace, we are going to contribute to developing the economic, social, and political power of women and girls. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, this government inherited a short-term windfall from a housing bubble in Toronto and Vancouver, a booming U.S. and world economy, the doubling of oil prices, and what did they do with it all? They blew it. And now the results are coming in. Today we have disappointing economic growth numbers. Yesterday, the former chief economic analyst of Stats Canada revealed that investment in Canada is in a freefall. Why did they blow Canada's good fortune instead of setting it aside and preparing for the risks ahead?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
To look back at the last 2 years and where Canada was 2 years ago. We were debating whether we were in a recession or heading into a recession after 10 years of anemic growth under the previous government, where they've had the lowest employment growth since the Second World War, lowest growth of GDP since Mackenzie King, and all of this while adding $150 billion to the national debt. Canadians decided to take a different approach, one where we invest in our communities, invest in infrastructure, invest in science, something that they should have done a long time ago, which has generated over the last 2 years the Canadian economy has the fastest growth in the G7, 600,000 jobs created. I think we can be proud of that record.
The honourable member for Carleton.
The fact that they inherited from the previous government. The previous government took Canada through the great global recession with the best job results, the lowest debt, the lowest taxes, and the biggest middle-class income growth of any government since.
I just want to remind the honourable members that heckling is bad whichever side it comes from. So I just want to ask everyone to respect the person who's speaking. The honourable member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, the reality is that the previous government brought 1 million new jobs despite the great global recession. They've inherited massive global and U.S. growth and delivered nothing but debt as far as the eye can see. Now the world is taking its money out of Canada and we're losing jobs along with it. Why?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I think I'll use a line that the minister used yesterday. The member is entitled to his opinion, but not to his facts. And the fact is, over the last 2 years, it's 600,000 jobs that have been created in Canada. It's the fastest growth in the G7. And all of that, Mr. Speaker, while making Canada a more just and responsible society, giving more to families who need it the most, reducing taxes for 9 million Canadians. That's a record we ought to be proud of and they ought to listen to.
Absolutely.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Let's talk about the facts. The facts in 2015. The Parliamentary Secretary, all the Liberal MPs said we're going to have little deficits and no deficit by 2019. The reality of today, astronomical deficits and no idea of when we'll return to a balanced budget. The Conservatives are tired of the situation. Those who know how to count think that this makes no sense at all. A professor at HEC German Belzil said that it's very worrisome for the country's economy. This is highly imprudent. When will we return to balanced budgets? In what year? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can tell you that growth is what we achieved in the last several years by investing into infrastructure. And we've reduced our debt-to-GDP ratio. It is at the lowest rate since the end of the 70s. We are in the best fiscal position among G7 countries. And if we want to talk about economists, we can talk about Serge Coulombe, who said on Radio Canada that it is fiscally responsible to invest and to keep a deficit under control while making sure that the debt-to-GDP ratio continues to go down. And that is exactly what Canadians are expecting of us and what we're doing. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. It's not just economists who are worried. The ministers of finance are worried as well. The Minister of Finance for Quebec, a Liberal minister, can't believe the government's current attitude. He said, we have to protect ourselves. When the economy is going well, balanced budgets are not just a dogma, but a necessity. He knows what he's talking about. He reestablished balanced books in Quebec. I have a simple question for my colleagues on the other side. Exactly on what date will we return to balanced budgets? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we are on the right road because our debt-to-GDP ratio is at its lowest. It's lower than it was under the previous government. I heard my colleague talk recently about a government that spends so much to deliver so little. I would imagine he knows something about that because under Stephen Harper, they raised the debt of the country while they had the worst rate of growth for GDP, the worst growth in exports. He knows something about it. The facts speak for themselves. We've had the strongest rate of growth in G7 countries over the last 2 years.
Liberals promised to end the abuse of the temporary foreign worker program, but now they're on the cusp of signing the Trans-Pacific partnership, a trade deal that's going to entrench the worst aspects of that program. Under TPP, foreign companies are going to be allowed to bring in their own workforce without advertising their jobs to Canadians, without getting a labour market opinion saying there aren't enough qualified Canadian tradespeople to do the job. Provincial governments are expressly prohibited from doing any kind of skills testing on these workers. So as a Canadian tradesperson myself, I want to know how it is the Liberals thought it was okay to sell out Canadian tradespeople at the international bargaining table.
The Honourable Minister
Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for allowing me the occasion to talk about the CPTPP, which we will be signing next week in Chile. Mr. Speaker, what this agreement does is opening up a market of 495 million people, 14% of the world economy, Mr. Speaker. This is people and businesses across our nations which are going to benefit from a new market in Asia-Pacific. And I can assure the member that we've been in discussion with labour unions in this country. We're going to continue to engage with them because we want a strong agreement that works for every Canadian from coast to coast to coast.
The Honourable Member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, recently the high Arctic has seen record high temperatures, more than 30 degrees above normal, leading to melting ice in the middle of winter in the high Arctic. The Liberals promised to step up and have Canada do its part in the fight against climate change, but they kept Stephen Harper's weak, inadequate targets, and they aren't even going to meet those. And again, in this budget, there was little or nothing for real climate action. So when will the Liberals recognize the urgency and actually do what is necessary to fight climate change?
Well, Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I'm extraordinarily proud of our commitment to tackle climate change. After a decade in action by the previous government, we have stepped up. We have put a price on pollution across the country. We have phased out coal. We've made historic investments in clean technology. Innovation is going to make a real difference. And we're leading and pushing for ambitious implementation of the Paris Agreement on the world stage. We are all in on climate action. We are serious. We owe it to our kids.
Number 4, Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, 32 BC First Nations have LNG pipeline agreements like the $40 billion Kitimat project, which will run through Haisla Nation traditional territory. But the Liberals' delays and added costs, directed by anti-energy activists, put it all at risk. Haisla Chief Counsel Crystal Smith sees a, quote, different future with LNG than the Sierra Club. She says she sees significant employment for her members, access to education, and a way forward to true self-sufficiency. Why do the Liberals ignore pro-natural resource Indigenous communities and deprive them of economic prosperity, social benefits, and thousands of jobs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've said before in this House, we have done more for the natural resources sector and the energy sector particularly than the previous government did in the past 10 years. As you know, we are working on a new plan with Indigenous peoples around resource development to make it more, to have the ability for Indigenous peoples to have a greater say, more impact on the process. We believe that this is the right thing to do. Had the previous government, in fact, done that and engaged more Indigenous people, the Northern Gateway pipeline would not have been struck down by the courts. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon, Grasswood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we all know, this Liberal government loves to spend money and make gestures. But this is a question on priorities. Canada has a very serious rural crime issue. Yet there was nothing, absolutely nothing in the current budget to address this serious problem. Why does this Liberal government continue to fail rural Canada and those who serve and protect?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the...
Mr. Speaker, we are absolutely committed to ensuring that the RCMP has the resources and support they need to keep our communities safe, whether that's in an urban environment or in a rural one. We are still reeling, unfortunately, from the $500 million that the Conservatives cut from the RCMP. That did real damage to rural communities and to keeping them safe. But in both the most current budget and in others, we have been rebuilding that infrastructure, rebuilding that resiliency and strength so that we can provide for our rural communities the service, the support, and the security they deserve.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, Quebec is part of Canada, just like the 9 other provinces and 3 territories. We, the Conservative MPs for Quebec, are well placed to defend Quebec's interests in United Canada. How can this government justify investing $75 million only in the Atlantic provinces and excluding Quebec to fight the spruce budworm? A budworm is an insect that travels without any notion of provincial borders. What scientific study did this Liberal government use to justify how it's going about protecting the forestry industry? Where is the logic of this government? Why exclude Quebec? Can it explain what is unexplainable? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Millions to support the forestry sector in Quebec. We invested $87 million to support scientific research, including funding to combat the spruce budworm. More than $23 million in funding to Quebec to support innovation and transformation in the forest sector. And most recently, Budget 2018 provides $191 million to support softwood lumber jobs. Mr. Speaker, that's in addition to the Softwood Lumber Action Plan of $867 million that we're providing to support workers, communities, and companies affected by the unjust American duties. Thank you.
Member for Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, March is Nutrition Month, and this year's theme is Discovering the Power of Food. Our food choices are among the most important decisions we make every day for our health. We are seeing significant discussions among Canadians about the role that food choices play in healthy lifestyles. Can the Minister of Health update the House on our government's important actions with respect to healthy eating?
Good. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley for his important question and also in his work on the Health Committee and Bill S228. Over the past year, we have launched our healthy eating strategy to make the healthy choice the easiest choice for all Canadians. As a part of the strategy, we are updating Canada's food guide, restricting marketing to kids, and also making nutrition labeling easier to use and also to understand. This month, I encourage all Canadians to learn more about healthy eating and also incorporating healthier choices in their diets. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, last year's assault by the Revenue Minister on disabled Canadians has jeopardized registered disability savings plans for many Canadian families who saved their money and received matching grants from the government. Disability tax credit rejections mean some families who receive the credit for 10 years or more will lose their savings plans for the future care of their disabled children. What is the minister doing to ensure families of disabled children aren't losing their savings plans because of this minister's attack on the disabled?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our party is to ensure that all Canadians receive the credits to which they are entitled to. The agency is reviewing all disability tax credit application processed in the May 2017 clarification letter. The minister reinstated the Disability Advisory Committee and participated in the first meeting back in January of 2024. Experts from around the committee table will have opportunity to suggest improvements to how the agency administers program for Canadians with disabilities, experts who the Harper government silenced back in 2006.
The Honourable Member for the Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, the EI Working Well On Claim pilot project has been a success for Canadians receiving parental and caregiving benefits, allowing those EI recipients to return to work without jeopardizing their benefits. Could the Minister for Families, Children and Social Development please tell the House how Budget 2018 will expand on this project's success? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Families.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member from the Bay of Quinte for highlighting the Working Well on Claim program. I'm pleased to say that Budget 2018 includes a proposal to make it permanent. In fact, not only will existing EI claimants be grandfathered in, but all EI recipients will be eligible, including those receiving maternity or sickness benefits. This way, people can return to work after an illness or the birth of a child and be able to keep more of their benefits. This budget delivers on providing Canadians with a flexible and compassionate EI system, and I thank the member for the question.
Well, member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister blamed the Indian government for making him look bad. Newsflash. The PM is doing an excellent job of embarrassing us on the trade file all by himself. Softwood lumber failed. China trade failed. U.S. trade failed. And now the Americans have announced devastating tariffs on our steel and aluminum manufacturers. While our PM feels his job is only ceremonial, Canadians are looking for real leadership. Has the PM confirmed that Canada will be exempt from these new devastating tariffs? Mr. Speaker, jobs are at risk.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, as mentioned,
Canada is a key NORAD and NATO ally, and as the #1 purchaser of American steel, any trade restrictions on Canadian steel and aluminum is unacceptable. This industry is fully integrated, and of course it provides enormous value added to the North American manufacturing supply chains. Should restrictions be imposed on Canadian steel and aluminum products, we will take and reserve the right to take responsive measures to defend our trade interests and Canadian workers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Repentigny. After farmers, Mr. Speaker, it's now the turn of the Government of Quebec to sound the alarm. The temporary foreign worker program is not working and is undermining Quebec's development. Because of a lack of specialized labor, our cutting-edge businesses are losing contracts and all of Quebec is affected. When will the government finally recognize that one-size-fits-all federal programs don't work and that it is absolutely urgent to grant Quebec all of the flexibility it needs to develop?
Well, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague across from the block for that question. And I agree with her in that the one-size-fits-all model does not work, as it was imposed under the past Conservative government. We believe that Canadians deserve first crack at jobs in this country. We believe that there can be no suppression, wage suppression, or downward pressure on Canadian wages. We believe that workers that come in have to be protected by the laws of this country, but we believe that companies have to have access to a skilled workforce, something that was set out of balance with the past government.
The honourable member for Repentigny. It's clear that Quebecers are not well served by one-size-fits-all programs, but they're also not being well served in another file, which is the spruce budworm. Irving's lobbyists seem to be getting a lot more out of the elected officials than Quebecers. After 31 meetings with ministers, Irving was able to get $75 million to fight the budworm, which is ravaging forests in the Maritimes. Irving owns 4.5 million acres in New Brunswick. Quebec, though, did not get a single penny for the same epidemic affecting an area larger than all of New Brunswick. $75 million for the Maritimes.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said earlier, our government has invested millions to support the forestry sector in Quebec. We invested $87 million to support scientific research, including funding to combat spruce budworm. More than $23 million in funding to Quebec to support innovation and transformation of the forestry sector. And most recently, in Budget 2018, we provided $191 million to support softwood lumber jobs. Mr. Speaker, that is in addition to our softwood lumber action plan of $867 million, which we're providing to support workers, families, and communities against the unjust, punitive American duties. Thank you.
The honourable member for Joliette. We're not answering the question on the budworm. Why just the Maritimes and not Quebec? That's unacceptable. The federal budget for 2018 was a deep disappointment for Quebec, especially for Davies workers. Members on the other side who represent Quebec, well, I would be ashamed. Another budget and still nothing for Davie. Zero. But, surprise, millions for Irving. Obviously, the federal government does not deal with everyone on a level playing field, and no one seems to want to speak on Quebec's behalf. What is the government waiting for to give Davie a fair share of contracts? Are they waiting for the shipyard to turn into condos? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, the government has, of course, committed to providing to the Canada Coast Guard the ships it needs to serve the Canadian public. The government is pleased to work with the Davie Shipyard, which has done excellent work on the Asterisk in order to find a solution that will meet icebreaker needs. This will ensure the transportation of our goods and protect communities. We are determined to make sure that the Canada Coast Guard has the equipment it needs and that the Davie Shipyard is part of that solution.
Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have alarming news from the front lines of the climate emergency. The dispatches are deeply worrying. The defenses are falling against what protected our Arctic and kept it cold. The polar vortex is eroding, and like an advancing army, the warm air from the south has occupied our Arctic, driving temperatures up 25 degrees Celsius above normal in a sunless winter. No sun has warmed that ground for months, and yet the Arctic is in a heat wave. The time for complacency, pat answers, and fossil fuel appeasement is over. When will this government increase our targets and our ambitions to meet this accelerating threat?
The Honourable Minister for the Environment.
Speaker, and I want to thank the member opposite for her tireless advocacy on climate change. I was in the high Arctic this past summer with Inuit youth, and they talked to me about the very real impacts of climate change. It's extraordinarily worrying what we're seeing right now. I am working extremely hard to bring Canadians together on climate action. We're putting a price on pollution. We're phasing out coal. We're making historic investments in public transit, on energy-efficient social housing, on investments in clean technologies, and we need to be working with the world. We are all in on climate action. I would encourage all the parties opposite to do the same.
Et c'est la fin des questions orales aujourd'hui. That's the
end of question period today.
Daily routine, well, maybe we'll wait till everybody moves a bit, and then we'll continue. Give a few minutes. We'll proceed. Tabling of documents. Don't have any. Statements by ministers. I'm sorry? Okay, very good. Introduction of government bills. Now statements by ministers. Reports for interparliamentary delegations. Presenting reports from committee. The Honourable Member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the honour to present in both official languages the 22nd report of the Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Communities in relation to Bill C-64, an act respecting wrecks, abandoned, dilapidated and hazardous vessels and salvage operations. The committee has studied the bill and has decided to report the bill back to the House with amendments. This bill, Mr. Speaker, was built on my motion M40 and will address environmental and economic concerns that have plagued our coastal communities for years. I look forward to the final vote on this bill in the House and hopefully the full support of all members. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Présentation de rapport des
Presenting reports from committees, the Honourable Member for Hull-Aylmer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the honour of tabling in both official languages the 22nd report of the Standing Committee on Finance concerning the supplementary estimates C 2017-2018.